A wife and mother would leave her work early in the morning, and her car would stall, and she would never make it home. Hello, true crimeers. This is another true crime in a short amount of time, and it is the case of Veda Woodson. Viewer discretion is advised. Veda Ellen Woodson was born on August 24th, 1934, and she lived in Tulsa County in Oklahoma with her husband, who she was happily married to, and they had multiple children together. On the evening of July 25th, 1973, Veda would work her first night at the job doing janitorial work at First National Bank. The bank was located in Tulsa, and it was probably like a couple of miles away from where she lived. At approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, she and her co-workers left the bank to go home. Veda would have to go down a road, I believe was called Cincinnati Road, which is a very long stretch. And it's a pretty quiet road, not a very busy one, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's believed that she was planning to stop by a nearby corner store, convenience store to get a bottle of 7-Up because she had a son at home that was sick with an upset stomach. But Veda never got home, and so her family grew concerned, especially after an hour or two, her husband noticed that she still wasn't, at the house. Well, as he was at home worrying, at about 2 o'clock in the morning, the Tulsa County Sheriff's Department received a call that there was a car seemingly abandoned on the side of the road, and it looked as if something had happened to it. When they arrived at the scene, they did see a vehicle. It was a 1958 Chevrolet, and the driver's side door was wide open. The window was completely smashed and broken through. The belongings of the occupant were all in the car. Like there was a purse, there was, the keys were still in the ignition, the wallet, everything that this person likely had was in the car. But the person themselves was gone. It would soon be identified as the car belonging to Veda Woodson. So now it's, where the hell is Veda? So the police and family and volunteers, they go out searching, and unfortunately, it would be her own brother that while kind of walking down that stretch of road that Veda would have been driving on, and kind of deep into the wooded area, he found his sister's body. Veda had been sexually assaulted, and she appeared to have been strangled with a cloth that they would later determine is like a painter's cloth. And part of the cloth was also stuffed into her mouth. She was nude, and they actually found her clothing about 1 mile south down the road from where she was found. But the clothing and all of that and her body, the crime scene, it didn't really yield a lot of evidence. This is 1973. Well before anything to do with DNA. They dusted everything for fingerprints, her car, anything kind of around her body, and they came up with nothing. A witness would go forward to the authorities to let them know that they think they saw Veda's car on the side of the road at around 1:40 in the morning. And when they saw her car, nothing was broken. She was in the car with another person. They thought a man. There was a car parked behind hers. It looked as if this person was possibly talking to Veda about maybe getting her help because her car had actually, it stalled. She had some engine troubles. I guess this wasn't the first time. So apparently, because the road she was on was kind of a hill. And so what likely happened was the car stalled somewhere at the top of the hill, and she just sort of coasted down until the car came to a stop. And then a potential good Samaritan saw this and offered to help her. That's what it looked like to the witness. But what the person probably really saw was the man who kidnapped her and killed her. There was a theory that did Veda stop at the corner store she said she was going to stop at, because if she did, that corner store had a bar attached to it. The bar was still open. There was a soda machine on the outside of the store that she would have used to have purchased the 7-Up. So there was like a theory of like maybe someone at the bar was outside and saw her, maybe made advances at her, maybe she just sort of, blocked them away, and then they got mad and maybe they followed her and noticed her car stalled and then did something about it. They did, of course, look into the husband, because that's usually the first person they look into, but his alibi was unquestioned. They had several children, and they all say that he was there the entire night. And they were basically able to prove without a shadow of a doubt that he was home. They also would question all of her coworkers, especially those who were male, because she was sexually assaulted. They looked into all of their alibis, and they were able to clear every single one of her coworkers as being the one responsible for this. So this appeared to be a stranger on stranger encounter. The authorities were looking into who has a criminal history in this area. And they came across a potential suspect by the name of Stanley Clabough. This is a man who had a lengthy history of being a criminal. He was in and out of prison. He had been convicted of violent assaults, sexual assaults, grand theft auto, you name it. Stanley Clabough was also a painter there in Tulsa. They kind of thought, well, Stanley's a painter, and they found a painter's cloth around her throat and stuff down in her mouth. So they kind of said, well, maybe this is our guy, but they didn't have anything at the time to link him. He didn't really have a solid alibi, nothing that they could actually prove. But they also didn't have anything to say, yep, he is definitely the guy who did this. Witnesses would say that very shortly, within 24 hours of this murder taking place, Stanley Clabough was seen taking all the tires off of his vehicle and then replacing them. And then he sold the vehicle after that. Police were able to track it down, however, and they did take evidence from there that they thought was relevant, including painter's cloth and other things like that. But at the time, it yielded nothing. There was tire tracks found next to her body, but he replaced all of his tires, which is a little fishy, but doesn't necessarily mean anything. Unfortunately, the case just went very, very cold. They really felt like Stanley Clabough, he fit the bill, but they just couldn't prove it. Fast forward many, many decades later, we're now in 2016 or 17, I believe. They were able to get a warrant to get Stanley Clabough's DNA. They got a buccal swab. And from that, they took his DNA and they ran it against everything in the car that they tested. This also included a piece of the broken glass because they figured he may have punched through the glass and cut himself. He was seen with a cut on his arm within less than 24 hours of the murder taking place, which would implicate he had punched through the glass and scratched himself. Again, could be just coincidence. But again, nothing came back matching him. Then, is now 2018, they take some of the stuff they found in his vehicle. And one of those things being the painter's cloth that was taken out of his car. And it was the exact type of painter's cloth that was found with Veda's body that was used to likely kill her. They ran DNA on that. None of his DNA, like skin cell DNA, because they thought maybe if he grabbed it around her throat, it would have been strong enough to leave skin cell DNA. Nothing came back to him. But on that cloth, they did find DNA from a female contributor. When they were able to then take Veda's DNA and match it against the female contributor on the cloth, it was a match. They said it was blood DNA. The cloth found in his vehicle had her blood and DNA on it. So it should be a slam dunk at this point. Unfortunately, it's not that easy, because what he claimed and what his family is still claiming is that he had donated his vehicle to their church in the weeks leading up to the murder, and the church had the vehicle at the time. So they're basically trying to say, well, that's someone who used the car from the church. They're the ones who did it then, because they had all the stuff. It was them. And police can't refute it, and that's an issue. And I guess him and his family, especially his daughters, are really trying to find some sort of proof that they donated this vehicle to the church. But so far, they've come up with nothing. They've shown nothing to actually say that's what happened. But for some reason, the DNA is just not enough to actually get a warrant for his arrest. I mean, it was her DNA in his car. It's got to be something, right? But that doesn't prove that he was the one to have the cloth around her. As far as I know, the witnesses who saw Veda and this unknown person in the vehicle at 1:40 in the morning, I'm assuming they were not able to say for sure if it was him or not. The Tulsa County Sheriff's Department, though, they have a cold case task force on this. They do believe that Stanley Clabough is the guy, that he is the killer, but they need more evidence. But as of right now, they can't officially charge him with anything. Technically, they want to say that this case is cleared, but they have not said it's solved. And no one has been brought to justice. And so as of right now, technically, this case is still a cold case. I have been doing a lot of cold cases recently, a lot of unsolved cases recently. I like to focus on those, I think, because those are the ones that still need answers. And I'm just a little peon here on YouTube. If someone could see one of my videos, right, and go, oh, boom, I know, I have information on that, then, why not try? Who knows what could happen? The right person may stumble and fall into this video and have an answer. Don't worry, I'll still cover plenty of solved cases, but I like to do these because they need help. If you have any information on the murder of Veda Woodson, you can contact phone number 918-596-5723. And that is the Tulsa County Sheriff's Department cold case department. Perhaps you could help solve this one. But that is it for this case. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that one day this family gets closure. We will see you for the next case, and until then, ta-ta for now. True crime Roonies. Please subscribe. Follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all linked in my link tree below. Okay, bye, great.